All right, welcome into the TacBox podcast. I am your host, Tyson Wald, and I have my co-host here, Dale Martinson. And this is the first episode of our TacBox podcast where it is all things dog related. And in today's episode, we are going to talk about what you do, what you can do, and the questions that you might have when you are finding the breed of dog that is right for you. So, how are you doing today, Dale?
Man, I'm good, doing good, Tyson. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a little winter weathery outside, but not much that I can complain about. You know how it goes.
Oh, only too well because I don't know if anybody else knows this, but we both grew up in Rapid City, South Dakota, and graduated from the same high school, 20 years apart. So, yeah, we know the weather up there well. And actually, your weather and climate are two very, very integral parts of the kind of dog you're going to get. But let's go on into that. It's a great opening topic.
Yeah, so we wanted to create this podcast, as you just explained, that we're both from the same area, so we kind of connected over that. We met at a dog show. We both have the a love for the same breed of dog that you have on your shoulder, which is a Japanese Chin. And most people that are probably tuning into episode one are probably here because of you and your reputation in the Japanese Chin world. But we connected at a dog show. We met and we had the common connection of being from the same place, the love for the same breed, and we've just connected since then. And we decided we need to share some of your knowledge with the world because you've been doing it for so long. And then some of the questions that I might have as a new person is going to be a lot of questions that anybody coming into the dog world, whether it be breeding, showing, or the pet, that are just looking to find out more information. We have the questions and we also have the knowledge bank to do that. One of the first things that somebody might think of when they think I want to get a dog is how do I how do I figure out what dog I want? I see these dogs and people out running with their dog, or I see toy breed dogs or this type of dog. But how do I determine what dog is going to fit into my lifestyle? So we wanted to talk about that a little bit today here. And you had mentioned the environment, right? So talk to me a little bit about the knowledge that you would have with somebody trying to find what breed would work for them and maybe what resources there are out there for people to discover.
Well, when Jane and I got started in purebred dogs, the our link to the outside world from South Dakota was Dog World magazine, and we could go in there and they would have articles and you could read about about potential breeds because first you're going to have that visceral attraction where you're going to look at it and go, oh, I like the looks of that dog. You know, whatever if that dog looks cool. I can imagine that dog on my couch. That dog could fit into my life. But then you have to go and dig deeper. And that's where people today have this amazing resource with all of the online tests and the breed standards all online. Because what a breed standard is it's like a caninematch.com profile, and it's going to tell you everything there is to know about that breed. Now, they may soften the edges a little bit and kind of say, well, this breed needs a job. Well, what that means is you've got to get up in the morning and run that dog, or it's going to eat your house. You know, if you live in a suburb and you need a quiet dog or something that will be unobtrusive to your neighbors, well, then maybe you don't want a hound that's going to wake up each morning howling. You know, there are things about each breed, and it's in the standard that should be able to fit into your life. Like because whatever breed you have or like, it's got to work for you. And if you like the breed, then you're going to find people that you're going to gravitate to people that also like that breed. And so you can be successful in any breed, but it's a matter of like being really honest, saying, this is the amount of grooming I want to do. This is the amount of facilities I have. This is the amount of time I have. This is what I expect this dog to do for me. So do I want a dog to go running with me? No. All right, then that might be high on the list. Do I have small children or lots of little kids around? Maybe that's on my list. Maybe I just really enjoy grooming. and want to brush and groom a dog and spend countless hours therapeutically as you brush out this dog. If that's what you like, it's there for you. But you have to be honest about your commitment that you're going to bring, because you can't move a Shetland pony on into your house and think that that's just gonna work. You've got to be honest about what you want. And like, what drew you to Japanese chin?
Well, I mean, that's a good question, and I've got some other good questions here, but realistically, so my story with Japanese chin is there's a local bird store in Rapid City, and I went in there for bird reasons, to get bird food. And the owner of the store, Barb, as you know, she has Japanese chins, and they're running all over the store all the time. So I kept going in the store, and I just was interacting with these dogs and interacting with these dogs. And before you know it, there's a litter of puppies in there, and you're playing with them and you're playing with them, and you just grow this attachment. And I've never I never was a toy breed dog person. I mean, I've had a pug before, I guess, so I have been, but I've been attracted more towards farm dogs. I grew up farming, so the farm, the cattle dog type of stuff, things that had the purpose of herding cattle. We never looked at them really as pets. They had a purpose, right? Their purpose was they were gonna herd the cattle when we needed them. So that was kind of how I grew up, and I never imagined myself with a toy breed, especially a Japanese chin when you think about it, because they're super pretty. You know, their whole royalty aspect of it. They just want to sit and look pretty, and that's what they are. And I never saw I saw myself as this. I'm a big burly man. I'm not going to have this little pocket dog type of a situation. And here I am now with a bunch of Japanese chin. But you fall in love with the breed when you meet it, and I think that's something super important when you're thinking about picking your breed. And there's ways uh, to interact with multiple breeds, because I think that's a question that a lot of people have is how do I get around these breeds? You know, I've only ever been around pugs, or I've only ever been around golden retrievers or black labs, because everybody in my cul-de-sac has a black lab, and so I've been around them and they're cool, and I need one because everybody around me has one. Or I'm a hunter, so I have to have a pointer that can do this, and that's all I've ever had or all I've ever had interest in. So how do people what are some in-person resources where people can actually go interact with dogs? Because I would have never thought myself that I would have a Japanese chin if I didn't get to personally interact with one. So through your experience, what are some resources people can utilize locally to them to be able to interact with multiple different breeds?
Sure. So back when back when we were in South Dakota, and Barb, who has the bird store, hey Barb, she was a member of the Rapid City Kennel Club, and so the Rapid City Kennel Club, they held matches and dog shows, and so you could go there and you could see lots of different breeds of dogs. And you could really, and you could meet people that had them, and you could have, and a lot of the bigger shows will even have what they call a meet the breed, where you can go in there and touch them and talk to them. And there are people there that have these dogs, and you can ask them the hard questions like, hey, is this going to kill my cat? Will this, how is this going to, in the old days, and if anybody wants to cancel us for saying this, send your message to Tyson. They would have a pet store, and you could go into the pet store and you could look at a pug, or you could look at a pointer, or you could look at a lab, or you could go in there and see these other dogs. That's really not done anymore. That's something of the 70s, 80s, and went away in the 90s probably. But now you can do these meet the breeds at the shows and at the events, the agility trials, and you can go and kind of see. You can go to PetSmart, and like they have lots of classes, and you can kind of where people are training their puppies and stuff, and kind of get a vibe, because like I say, after you do the initial like, what I really like about this dog, then because I had sporting dogs. I had spaniels, cockers and cavaliers, and dogs that were a little sportier dogs. What I liked about the chin so much was that they were so great to live with. I mean, they were just so unobtrusive. They were quiet. They were funny. I like their quirkiness. They were easy in the house. They didn't destroy the house, and they were like a really low upkeep, and that really appealed to my laziness, that they could. And I liked a dog that looked like a show dog every day of the week. So where like a show quality pug or a show quality chin, that dog looks like a show dog. Whereas if you get something that's a heavily grooming breed or something like that, well, then that dog is going to look like a show dog right for about 15 minutes after you get done totally grooming it and doing it out. So you really have to kind of think about, do I like this? Can I maintain this dog in a look that I really like? I think a lot of folks today have fallen into the designer dogs, which we used to call mutts or curs, but that's no longer correct either. But they don't really know what exactly the 200 and some odd dollar groom that they're going to do every 6 to 8 weeks to make that dog look so naturally unkempt, and like this really cute, fuzzy bear-like dog. Well, that's a great look. It's just a lot of work. And if you want that, there's lots of breeds that have that. But so I mean, you really have to be honest with yourself. And then, of course, getting online, checking out these events, because I mean, now we talk about dog shows and that kind of stuff because we're obsessed with dog shows, but there are lots of other events. There's agility trials. There's lots of things that people get together and do with these dogs, different breeds. My nephew in Brookings is doing field work with his Gordon Setter. They do lots of that stuff. So there's like trials and all that. All of this information you can get a hold of a lot of this stuff on akc.org. And each breed of dog, and there's like over 200 breeds, has what they call a parent club. And so like say you were interested in Japanese chin, for example. You would go on to the Japanese Chin Club of America. They would have breed information. They would have people that had that breed, and you could go on with some assuredness that you're dealing with reputable people. Because if you just go online, you fall into the abyss. And some of those folks on there may be reputable, and some of them may not be reputable. Oftentimes, your people that are involved with your parent clubs and with showing, those are your more reputable, dedicated people. Those are people that if you send them money, you'll likely get a puppy, whereas like you don't want to get into the Craigslist environment. So you found your dogs through interacting with Barb and seeing her dogs. And now you go to shows and you probably have a whole reference point of people can come to you and ask about a lot of different breeds. And you'll go, well, I know this person. They're from the show or they're from the kennel club.
Yeah, exactly. And so you mentioned, earlier talking about breed standard, and, one of the things that as a new person to dog showing, I'm going to say dog showing or maybe running a kennel because I have 6 dogs now with pure intentions of showing, finishing as we call it in the show world. So getting their titles from AKC and then breeding. So that would consider me, I guess, at that point, a kennel. And so a lot of the questions that I would have for somebody new just starting, you say breed standard. And a lot of times somebody when they're looking like, I want to get my first dog. I always had a dog growing up and now I need to get one. And they listen to this and they say, these guys talking about breed standard and showing. Can you just explain those two a little bit and maybe where somebody would go and find them if they were wanting to look up, say, a poodle or a German Shepherd or something like that? How do they get a hold of their breed standard?
Okay, well, so you can go to akc.org and they're going to have all of those there. There's like multiple places online. There are quizzes that you can go on there and say, hey, I'm highly active, I'm not active at all, I want this kind of dog, I want this size of dog, because these standards are going to break it down. They're going to break it down. They're going to say the breed characteristics, size. What kind of size of dog are we talking about? When I met Barb, when I was 14 years old, my uncle had given me a St. Bernard puppy. And that St. Bernard puppy, I wanted a St. Bernard puppy. I don't know why. There wasn't like a burning in. It was in front of me. I wanted it bad. And so I was going to agree to whatever it took to get that puppy home. And for which my mom didn't speak to my dad for the 8 short hours of driving home. And because we had a St. Bernard puppy. But I started with that dog and I took her to obedience class through the 4-H and then through the Rapid City Kennel Club. And then she was really good in obedience, probably the only well-behaved dog I ever owned. And then I went to a couple of events, matches, got more. Then I saw Cocker Spaniels, and I was like obsessed. I thought, oh my God, that's my dog. And I mean, where I really liked my Saint Bernard, when it came time when we moved to Texas, that rough-coated Saint Bernard would not have been easy to keep. And so I did like all self-entitled teenagers did. I left it with my parents. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for taking care of that dog for the next 8 years. But it would have been very difficult for me to have that dog where I lived. You know, I mean, it was easy with the Cockers because could be inside in the air conditioning, and they were happy with that. It worked out well for them. So you really have to think about, where am I keeping this dog? How is this dog going to work into my life? Is this going to be my long term thing? I mean, there's a wonderful dog. I had a lot of family support with that, so I was very fortunate. She lived a long and great life, but she got to live in South Dakota where she did extremely well, in that with that temperature and climate. So, you go on there, you read about it, then you apply it to your situation and say, well, this would work great for me. This might not work at all for me, and kind of you got to be truthful though. And I mean, even though maybe that chin isn't the cool dog you thought that you really were going to have. And it's like, well, this really looks good with my tattoo, but it might be a great dog to live with. And I really enjoy having this dog, and this is a fun dog and really fits into my life. And I like traveling with him. And so a lot of times we find our breeds, by some, like I say, the visual attraction, but then by the actual elements of what it takes to own one.
Yeah. And so, like you had mentioned earlier, parent clubs, and you had asked me, if anybody came and said something to me about it, I'd probably have a connection through a parent club or going to shows that, oh, yeah, this person and this person. And I think that's one of the biggest resources out there. We all start with Google, right? We all open up our phone browser or our computer browser and we're like, what dog is right for me? Or you start Googling different characteristics. And generally, you start with a dog that was in your life growing up that
Exactly.
friends or family had. Like you had the dog that was just there and it's like, I want it. Well, because you're a teenager and that's the one that's right in front of you. Um, and that's how a lot of it goes, teenagers, kids, wives, even husbands sometimes see a puppy. Oh, it's so cute. Without thinking about what the actual breed is and what it's going to be like when it grows up and what needs it has. And so we all start with Google, and there's a lot of places on Google that you can go that, I mean, there's lists that different sites do, including the AKC of the top breeds. So those are good lists to read and see about the breed and how they're rated, just based on some top commonalities that they might have. And you can kind of gather like, oh, this kind of fits my lifestyle. This doesn't fit my lifestyle. You can go to the parent clubs and you kind of Google that. So every breed has a parent club, right? It's like the Japanese Chin Club of America, and can you find a lot of information there? Yes, you can find a lot of information there. But the biggest part that I've kind of noticed with the parent club is the connections that you make with people. So you can't just go to the Japanese Chin Club America website and sign up and be a part of this site. Like you have to, they're a club and you have to get into the club. But before you get into the club, you can utilize their resources. So they have resources about the breed standard, about the dog, and you can find out about that. There's a list of breed mentors on there. So you with their email address, so you can email them. And I've done that a ton with people and made connections with people and learned about the breed just from solely emailing people from the Chin Club website. asking questions. And the more questions you ask, the more answers you get, but the more knowledge you get about the breed. But you said something that really resonated with me that I think a lot of people might have, but they don't necessarily think about. So, when looking at a breed and maybe the size of it, a lot of times we go to, again, what we had growing up or what we're familiar with, but we don't necessarily know what it's like to live with. So, when I met my wife, she had a boxer and we lived with a boxer. I mean, the boxer came with the wife, right? So, I accepted the boxer because I accepted my wife, and we lived with the boxer for a few years. And we've both looked at each other and said, having six chin is easier than one boxer. The size of the beds,
Yeah.
the yard that you need, the requirements. So, what are some of the things that a lot of people don't think about that you found out through experience in your years? Maybe mistakes even that people have made of, like, they got a Rottweiler, they bring this dog home, finds out somebody in their HOA finds out they have a Rottweiler and it's against their policy of their HOA to have a Rottweiler. So some of those types of things, what have you kind of discovered over the years, or questions that somebody needs to ask themselves?
Absolutely.
Does my HOA allow it? What about insurance?
Right. Sure. Well, so for starters, once you get involved with the clubs a little bit, you can also if there's people in your area that have that your breed, you might can go ahead and ask them a little bit. Sometimes people will let you come out and kind of see their dog, sometimes or that kind of thing. But you can kind of get a vibe for what it's going to take, what this commitment looks like. And you can also, these people that have these dogs, they have, they not only have puppies oftentimes, but they might have a retired dog. They might have a dog that they're no longer breeding or showing, or they might know of somebody that is in the situation where they need to rehome a dog. And so there's all sorts of options in there. Once you kind of like go, I've picked my breed, maybe I don't have time to take on a puppy, but maybe I could give a really great home to an older dog. And those are really good things to kind of, you can get that relationship started with people that are in there and kind of like, establish that, like, I'm going to take this older dog. Older dogs, just like older people, we have adjustment issues. We are a little more expensive to keep. But on the flip side, we come house broke usually, or with at least a dependable schedule, and you can kind of find out about, like, the other day, we picked up a rescue dog in our area. We took a Great Pyrenees home. Owner had died. The people just they had just like left the dog on the farmstead and moved away, and the dog had just survived on its own for a couple of weeks. And we saw in a neighborhood bulletin that the dog was there, and we have 50 acres, so it's like, took him home. And I had some experience with the working dog, like I'd had the Saint Bernard, so I knew a little bit like about the care of that big dog, and I did have the space for him. I could have read the breed standard or maybe a little closer, and I could have seen, hey, they're nocturnal. They say it very nicely in the standard, like, oh, they're going to protect you in the evenings. Well, that means they're going to bark all night. And so luckily it's a quiet, kind of low, deep bark, and it's not highly annoying. But boy, you couldn't live in town with that dog and have him doing the boo, boo, all night long. And because he's out sleeping right now, so he can kick in at about 9 or 10 o'clock tonight. You read about these things, and that's the big benefit of the purebreds. They have these inherent traits, good and bad. So look at both of them and say, this works for me, this doesn't work for me. Now, we also have coyotes, so I'm kind of really glad I do have a dog that's keeping coyotes off of my property. And luckily, like I said, he's not too obnoxious, so we're keeping him. But I mean, I would tell someone that was wanting one of these dogs, oh, they're beautiful, they're majestic, they're nocturnal. They're going to stay up all night, and to ask him not to be, it goes against who he is, And those are things you really need to find out the good and the bad.
Yeah, and you find that out by, first of all, the breed standard, but something about the breed standard. The breed standard isn't going to come out and make a pros and a cons list. It's not going to be like pro, they're very pretty. Con, they stay up at night and bark. It lists just like you said, will protect you at night and be alert type of thing. Like they list it in a positive way, but you have to be able to determine that. Like, okay, so the dog, it says right in the breed standard, will protect you at night. Okay, what does that mean? Maybe that he's going to be up all night barking at
Yes.
every little noise. It's not going to
And
say
that's what you
con,
meet
dog barks.
yeah. You go meet the people that have them, and they're going to share that with you.
And a lot of times you don't have those people local, right? Depending on where you live. So
Of
here in
course.
Rapid City, I mean, trying to find, and now, you mentioned this earlier, back when I was a kid, like we're gonna go 80s, 90s. You could go to a pet store, you could find puppies, you could interact with them, you could hear about them. That's no longer available in a lot of places. That's been frowned upon. Pet stores selling puppies, um, putting animals for sale on Facebook Marketplace, anything like that. It almost seems hard to find puppies when you're not in the show world. I think I had asked myself that multiple times before we started showing dogs of like, where do people, it used to be like you'd find them on Craigslist or you'd find them on Facebook or you find them in the classifieds in the newspaper. Well, the newspaper doesn't happen really anymore. Nobody really uses newspaper. It's kind of frowned upon to put it anywhere out on the internet. So that's one place where you can start finding dogs as you get into the purebred dog world of their parent clubs, the breed clubs, the dog shows. There's a lot, pretty much everybody that goes to a dog show breeds dogs, or knows somebody who does. They all know where they got their dog and their breeder. They have their breeder, that they only deal with or like to deal with. So any any show, and what we mean by that is an AKC event, or any place where a kennel club is putting on a recognized event. You're going to find purebred dogs, and you're going to find their owners or their handlers who can give you a ton of information about that breed and that dog. And that's one of the biggest resources. And I've had people walk up to me at a show before and just ask me about the Japanese chin in general. This lady at this last show I was at just started asking us about the Japanese chin, and it was like, there's good times and there's bad times, lady. I love talking about my dog, but I need to be in the ring in like 5 minutes. But I'm going to keep talking to you because you're interested in my breed. And I could talk about my breed all day long. She's got pen and paper. So she keeps writing it down, asking questions, and she's writing every single thing down until, the ring steward's like, 13, you're up. Like, and it's like, I got to go. That's me. But um, so I think, again, determining, starting with the breed standard, read breed standards and see what they say, and then try to decipher them a little bit. Because reading a breed standard, it's almost like reading a lease or some sort of legal binding agreement where you're like, I need a lawyer to help understand this. But that's okay. It's okay. Take that breed standard of something that you're interested in and reach out to a couple people on, send emails to the people that you find in the clubs, and just ask questions, and you're probably going to get a few different answers. Coming, as somebody who's bred dogs before, multiple years, you've been breeding for what, 30 years,
40.
40 years. Yeah, I thought it was 40, but I didn't want to make you sound old if it was only
Yeah,
like
I
20s.
know. It's brutal, man. Yeah.
Gosh.
No, I
So
mean that's true. I mean you're going to get your dirt from your breeders.
yeah, but as a longtime breeder, when you're at shows, how does, like, random people coming up to you asking you questions, do you get giddy like I do to be able to talk about the Japanese chin, or is there times where breeders don't want you to be asking about their dogs?
Okay. So, yes and yes, but there is when you go to the show, they'll have a program that is free. It's called the schedule, and it's going to have where each breed is going to be judged and what time. So if you know, and you can access this online as well, so you can plan your day. Like if you want to go and watch the obedience, or you can see what time that's going to be, or if all of those events are published in advance of the show. There's a schedule, and that you can go in there and probably the best time to have a meaningful conversation isn't in the hour preceding the judging of that breed. Probably try to be there for the judging of that breed. And so you can watch the group of them in the ring and kind of look, and then go ahead and then after the judging, when you've seen them, say, hey, when would you have a chance where we could talk about them? And because people want to talk about dogs, we're all obsessed with our dogs. That's why we're here. We're obsessed with our dogs, and we are glad to tell you about our dogs. And we're glad to tell and we want our dogs to work out for you. Kind of like my parents, they knew when they were agreeing to that teenager's request for that dog, ultimately they were going to be responsible for that dog. So the breeders have that take on that same responsibility. We're the grandparents. It's like, okay, you want this is such and such, this is what you're going to need to do. There's going to be so-and-so's going to have a litter. A lot of the stuff online, and this is way your area of expertise, but you can get online and you can find a ton of information. They do a lot of these quizzes and the points of compatibility. And you can talk about how much shedding can you have in your home. I mean, because there's multiple types of coats in a dog. You have a single silk coat. Now, these dogs have zero shedding, like a Yorkshire Terrier, a Maltese, a Poodle. All of these breeds are zero shedding, but they have a continuous growing coat. So that means it's a high grooming breed, but it's no shedding. So then you have breeds that have a single coat, but it's a self-leveling coat, like a Chihuahua, a Papillon, a Japanese Chin. There is some degree of shedding, not an epic amount if you keep them clean, not like enough that would be not going to be clean in your house or something like that. You can easily keep them clean with home grooming, just home maintenance. But you don't have to pay professional trimming and grooming on those. Or then you have breeds like my beautiful Pyrenees, double coated. So not only does he do this epic shed, a couple times a year where it looks like the cottonwood trees are going, he has like this amazing coat that, like, on our coldest days, he's laying out there on the patio, sleeping because it's awesome, So all of those kind of things, you just kind of need to think, how is that going to work for my life? How does that work for me? What kind of, that's another thing. Like with purebred dogs, you have these traits locked in. And so we have a degree of consistency that mixed breeds do not offer. And really and truly, when you're going and making that, you make that decision, to bring in a puppy, you're making a commitment. And especially for families, because it's like, if you and your wife, you go get a dog and you decide, oh, we're gonna do the super cool thing and we're gonna go rescue this, dog that's part pit bull, part lab, part shepherd, part whatever. And if you take it home and you and your wife look at each other and go, hate that dog. It's like, it's destroying our home and our lives and we can't live in our neighborhood anymore. Then you guys could turn around and rehome it. But when you're getting a dog for your children, when you're getting a dog that you're going to add into your family, and there's like a level of commitment that you're a ride or die. And that's where the purebreds come in. That's where, because you can't take that dog away from your kids and say, it's not working out, that's a bad optic. It's like, you should have known going in and you're making a commitment. We're going to take care of this. My sister, they got a German short hair pointer, and I will say they kept that dog all the way to the bitter end, and not an easy fit. Tons of anxiety. Has like just had all sorts of issues because of that. They did, they made it work, and they stuck with it. They put in a long, like 14-year stretch with that dog, but it was never easy. And now she has like, 4 or 5 of my Cavaliers, my retired Cavaliers, and they like totally fit her life. I mean, therapy dogs, service dogs, easy in the house, low impact dogs, where that other dog was going to was really difficult for them. They kept it. I'll give them credit, but that's where you can, if you do your research up front, you'll get the right fit. Like you have with your chin. They're great to live with, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're fantastic to live with. One of the first things that people think about when they get a dog is, well, let's go check out the Humane Society. Let's see rescues. And you hit on this a little bit, but I just want to peel the onion back a little bit more and go in a little bit deeper on it. There's a little bit of a barrier between rescues and purebreds, right? Being, and you'll have one side of the fence like, oh, don't get a purebred dog because they have issues. Do a mix. I want to be a good person and I want to rescue a dog from the Humane Society. Help everybody understand why a purebred dog. What are the benefits of a purebred dog? I know you just hit on it a little bit, but let's just dig in a little bit deeper. Why purebred versus a mix?
Let's go there. So the pounds and the shelters, they're placing people's irresponsibilities. They're placing the dogs that people were not responsible for. They are placing, and I mean, God bless them, hard work. Don't envy them at their task. I don't. The breeders are not responsible for the dogs in the shelter. That's not our responsibility. Just no more so than parents are responsible for children in juvenile centers. I mean, it's like, honestly, someone else's lack of being willing to spend money and taking care of their dog and being responsible and having it spayed or neutered or whatever, and allowing them to have a litter and then not finding homes for them and dropping them off. That's not breeders. That's irresponsible owners. So when you go ahead and take those dogs, if you can, I'm not going to say it's not a good thing. Sure, go ahead. I mean, is it going to be? It could be the best dog you ever had. You might be bringing home Lassie. You could be bringing home Romanian crack baby. It might be the hardest dog you've ever had to deal with because it's had absolutely no advantages. It's had not good medical care. It's not had nothing about that dog's life had been planned and good. And you're going to deal with those issues now or later. You will deal with them. And if you're willing to sign on for that and you want to do it, that's fine. And that's great. All breeders do rescue and placement. All of them. Parent clubs. Every parent club offers rescue and placement in our breed. We take care of our dogs. We take care of our breed. I don't know of any breeders that don't help other rescues of other breeds. We're all dog people at the end of the day. But, we also know, and we'd spend a good amount of time cleaning up after irresponsible people. So I resent a little bit that breeder bashing, adopt, don't shop, the humanization of that. We make very few things in this country, and our American purebred dogs are something we should take a great deal of pride in. And I mean, they are companions, they are service dogs, they are performance dogs, they're hunting dogs, they're all sorts of things. And I mean, and there is no shame in our game. And so if that's the dog you want to take on, that's awesome. And you should not feel any guilt about getting the breed that works for you, that you really like. And I mean, donate to your shelter, go, that's awesome. So be supportive. I mean, that's great. And if someone can make something like that work, it's like, not everybody would love my Pyrenees. There are days I don't love them as much as others. But it's kind of like, that you have to really know what you're getting and know the why, and don't back down on getting what you want, because it's a long-term commitment. You're talking 10, 15 years easy. You're talking about thousands of dollars. I mean, Call your vet clinic. Ask them how much for shots, how much for this, how much for that. So I mean, you're not saving money going into those situations. You're going to spend more money because none of that was done prior to that puppy. And you're going to spend the same amount of money. So there's not like a cheaper road out of this. Your dog that fits your needs, that has the care and the upkeep that you can do, then that's of course is going to be much more economically feasible to you and easier for you. So there's a lot to that, but that is, and we did kind of go through, and I think maybe now people a little bit are kind of, it might be swinging back a little bit now, not quite so PETA where we were opposing all things, purebred dogs, and honestly, the issues that we have in purebred dogs, the breeders of those dogs, we know what those issues are. So we breed away from them. We use health testing. We use DNA profiling. We do all of these things and say, okay, I know this breed can have this, this, and this. So I'm going to I'm going to do these selections in my breedings to minimize the things that can appear in that breed. So breeding them to another breed doesn't make those issues go away. It's not like, like some magic cocktail, like pound dogs are going to be healthier. The vets are going to charge you the same amount of money. They have the same genes from each parent. They're not going to be healthier or less healthy. They're dogs, right? But you just lose the predictability of your breed. So like with your pug or your Japanese Chin, well, you're not going to put them outside in 105-degree day, because they're brachycephalic. If you like a brachycephalic dog, well, then we know the things about taking care of brachycephalic dogs. We don't let them get hot, that kind of thing. Those are the kind of things that you learn about your breed as you select it, like what works for me, and what will be the right fit for your family.
I think there's a there's owning a dog, and then there's a companion of a dog. And I think a lot of times when you think about going to a rescue, getting a dog, great deed, like you said, good on you. You can do that and you're going to get a dog, but you don't know what type of dog you're going to get. You don't know what you're going to get. And what really drew me to purebred, and what I fell in love with purebred dogs and continue to just admire over, is you have to remember that these dogs, these purebred dogs, all over 200 different breeds, were bred for a specific reason. They were created to either do a job or to serve a purpose of some sort. And when you can stick with a purebred dog, you know that for the most part you're going to get what they were created to do. So if you want a hunting dog, you can go to the hunting group. You can find something in there that fits your fancy, and you know that 99%, if I buy a puppy, it's going to do what the breed standard says it's going to do because it's a purebred dog. You don't know that if you do a rescue and you get this mixed breed that's, it looks like a black lab, but it's got 5 different breeds in it. You have no idea what of the temperament that you're going to get, or what task it has, if it has any task other than eating and pooping.
Well, so like you can, like what you're talking about with the hunting dogs, you if even down to the type of hunting you're going to do. So if you're going to do water retrieves, you're going to do retrievers. You're going to do labs. You're going to do Chesapeake Bays. Those are all retrievers, like for waterfowl, duck, goose type, that type of thing. If you're doing field work, whether you want to use a pointer or a setter, it's very specialized. You know exactly what you want. If you're doing cattle, whether you're using a border collie or a healer, those are all things that the type of animals that you're doing, the type of work you're doing. If you're doing service dog work, gosh, not much beats a Cavalier. They are amazing service dogs, and a great size for that. So, all of those things, like if you really want to do a task with that, then that's really awesome. And then the other thing is, like when we're talking about our hypothetical kids, you know, so are if your kids are going to have their friends over, you have to have a dog that you can say, I'm absolutely, as a parent and a homeowner, 100% certain that this dog has, there's 0% chance that this dog has aggression. It's like Barb at her store bringing in she has no worries that the chin are going to be a problem for any customer. She doesn't have to watch them. She doesn't have, because she knows they're people dogs. They're going to be great with people. And like with the Japanese chin, they were bred to be entertainers. They're television before television. They were to be like the little best friends of the people that lived with them and be entertaining and fun. And they were going to live in a palace with paper walls, not tear things up. They like to be on things. They like be on the couch, the back of the couch, be on a shelf. That's who they are. They're very, and they talk about those things. And you read those standards, and they give you, if you really read it and go through there, and then of course talk to people that have them. But one thing that you kind of touched on with the internet is a lot of times now you need to be aware of who you're talking to online. There's a lot of information out there, a ton of information, and some of it's even true. Um, but you will find the pet stores went from being in the shopping mall to being online, and so a lot of those pet sites are actually pet stores, and you will talk to an operator and they will tell you about this wonderful dog, and they'll even schedule a call with the breeder, and they will offer financing and all of that. And what they do is so the breeder would consign the dog with this online listing agency, and then they were going to sell it, and they're going to take a cut, and the breeder's going to take a cut, and then a third party's going to transport the dog. Then this is really hard to tell exactly who you're talking to, because you get online, and because the same keywords are purchased in every state. So if you say Japanese chin breeder, Rapid City, South Dakota, Japanese chin breeder, San Antonio, Texas, all the same names come up because they buy all the keywords. And so they're going to drop into these listing agencies. This is where you get into clubs, you get into events, you talk to actual people that actually have the dogs. And so, whereas when you go online and on that, I mean, if they have a website, and if they have, if you can call them, of course, I have a website, but I don't publish my address on the website for obvious reasons on the internet. But I mean, if you should be able to say, well, I want to go, if I want to go and actually see the dog I'm getting, is that an option? You may or may not be able to, it might not be in your area, but the option is a good thing. It means that this is probably legitimate. I see people periodically. One customer of mine, she was wanting an older dog, didn't have an older dog for her. Said we would work on. She sends me a picture back. Said, "Oh, I found this dog on the internet, and it's for sale and it's cheap." And I said, "What do you think of that?" And I'm like, "Well, Miss Johnson, that's a beautiful dog. I owned that dog in '96. That is a picture that has been pirated off of the internet, and then now they're selling it to you, and somebody's going to have you send them money, and you're not going to get a dog, because that dog's been gone a while, and
Which is
that's
that's a great conversation to have probably for the next episode, to be honest with you, is
for sure.
acquiring a dog and all the things that the world that we live in, that we can acquire, how we can acquire dogs, from flight nannies to airports to the contracts
Absolutely.
involved with buying a purebred dog that you can have,
For
to
whatever your reason is.
yeah, to you could have an internet transaction with a fake dog. You could have it go one way or another. You could be purchasing a $2,500 dog and have a flight nanny deliver it to your airport, or you could be purchasing nothing and spend $2,500 to get scammed. So we can go over what to look out for in those scenarios and how to actually do that. One last thing that I want to end this episode with, before I let you go for the day, is all the other things. we're talking purebred dogs versus mixed breed versus rescuing a dog. Another perk of the purebred dogs that has a big part of your heart and a big part of my heart is dog showing.
Yeah.
Something that you can get. I have a 16-year-old daughter who was struggling to decide what she wanted to go to college for, to decide where she was going at in life. She was kind of just straight A student, but didn't really have any interests. She just kind of babysat and went to school. Fantastic kid, way more mature than any other 16-year-old I've ever been around. Half the time she seems like she's 25, but really had no idea what she wanted to do with her life, and kind of came down to, I'm going to go to nursing school because, medical, that's just kind of a fallback, it seems like, of teenage girls is I'm going to do something medical. And once we got our first dog, part of the agreement when we got our first Japanese chin was we had to go to the local dog show with it and enter it into the show. So we weren't gonna spay anything like that until after the dog show. Well, my 16-year-old daughter showed the dog at the dog show, and it was done. It was over. It was, we're going to more dog shows. I like this. This is fun. Um, it's one of the oldest sports in history, right? I mean, it goes
And
horse
only
racing.
Kentucky Derby by 1 year.
Yeah. Dog showing is, I mean, a lot of people don't think of it as a sport because we think of NFL, NBA, baseball, hockey, but this is a thing. And there is practice that goes into it. We go to a class once a week and practice. We practice at home on our own time. There's some skill. You gotta know how to communicate with your dog in there. So there's some skill, and there's a lot of passion into that. You can't do that with a non-purebred dog because your dog's got to be registered, a purebred dog registered with AKC to perform in a lot of these events. And that'll be a topic for another episode as well, because I think a lot of people look at dog shows as a way to show off my fancy dog, and that's not exactly what it is at all.
No, no, there is so much more to it. I mean, and I think it's such a great thing for families, and like I met Jane at a dog match for with the Rapid City Kennel Club, and she had a puppy, and we had a common interest, and we built a life together off of our common interests and made a career that eventually came for us. So I mean, it can go all of that or none of that, but the idea of having those dogs and the responsibility, the rewards, the you take care of the dog before you eat dinner. That says you're responsible for something other than yourself. It teaches young people to care about something other than themselves. It even comes down to when you like losing a pet, letting go, because that's something that in all of our lives we're going to face, letting go. And I think that letting go of a loved family pet, your dog, that's a really good lesson. I mean, and there's all of this stuff, there's competition, and sometimes it's not fair, and sometimes it's hard, and sometimes it's awesome. And, it's like, and it doesn't take away from that. Like, it's not a participation award. You don't just get a ribbon for showing up. You have to win it. You have to compete. You can lose, and all of this stuff, which I mean which makes the successes mean so much more. And I don't know. I just think an amazing, all of these activities, all of these things that they can do, and stuff. They can do all or none. They might just have the best dog they've ever had, and it's just like this wonderful animal they enjoy, because like every day is like a dog show. Like you're gonna take them with you and show everyone you know. It's an icebreaker. It's like I would never have had nerve to talk to Jane if she hadn't been holding a cocker puppy. I mean, that was the icebreaker for me. So I mean, these purebred dogs bring so much into our lives. And when you watch kids growing up with them, taking care of them and learning the history of these dogs and this breed. I mean, the history of these breeds is amazing. Cavaliers still allowed on the floors of Parliament. chin being bred off of the seven chakras of the Buddha. All of these things that are deep, deep, deep stuff. It's like canine dinosaurs. It's like our history as a country and I think there's so much to it. It's really cool. And it's a multi-billion-dollar industry too. So there is that too.
There's that part. Yeah, absolutely.
There is
And
that too.
I could go on so much. And again, this will be perfect conversation for future episodes. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the podcast on YouTube and your favorite podcast network. But uh, when I think about dog showing, we'll end it with this. When I think about dog showing and kids, if your kid plays band in school or plays football, basketball, baseball, hockey, does cheerleading, dance, there's about a 1% chance that they're going to go pro. Realistically, that they're going to go pro and do this for the rest of their life.
The rest of your life, that's a kicker right there on any
When
level.
you're at any level, when your kid shows dogs, there is 100% chance that they can do it for the rest of their lives, whether, pending their body capabilities of, they're physically able to do it. But there's no, for me to get into a ring with a Japanese chin and show a Japanese chin, or any dog for that matter, all I need is a purebred dog. I don't need to be the best handler in the country or in the top 2%, to make, I don't have to try out to be a handler like you have to try out to be on a sports team or to do anything. I can do this and be passionate about this sport for the rest of my life. And then I can make a family event out of it. My daughter, who's 16, wants to go be a professional handler after high school. And so now it's finding connections to help her make connections and get into that after high school. And the doors that purebred dogs open for human beings, I mean, is just another tick in the checkbox of what the dogs actually do for us as humans. Um, because I think they benefit us a lot more than we benefit them. And so it's a
That's a
fantastic.
great ending point for this. Thank you so much, Tyson. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks everybody for checking out episode 1. Again, make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen to your podcast, or if you want like the video podcast, it's on YouTube. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you have questions that you want Dale to answer, again, he has a world of knowledge. He's an open book. He's very open to answering questions. Go to our Facebook page, the TacBox podcast. You can find our Facebook page. You're more than welcome to ask questions there. We'll compile our questions and we'll make an episode about just answering your guys' questions. So thanks for being with us today. We will talk to you guys all again next week. See you soon.
Bye.